The Surface Pro X is kind of the baby of the Surface lineup with its ARM CPU, but is actually any good? Well, we're going to take a look and see just that. But first, if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The main defining feature of the Pro X is its Microsoft SQ1 CPU, essentially a modified Qualcomm Snapdragon 865, the same sort of CPU you'd find a lot of smartphones and tablets already. It uses an ARM architecture which uses the reduced instruction set computing, or RISC instruction set, which is quite different and quite a reduced size, funnily enough, from the standard X86 instruction set that AMD and Intel use, and it's actually able to be a lot more power efficient and in some cases even faster too. Now the problem with that is that because it's a completely different instruction set, normal Windows apps that are written for, let's face it, 99% of all Windows users won't run natively on this machine. Now happily, Microsoft has included X86 emulation via a translator here, so X86 apps can be run on the Pro X, but that doesn't mean that they'll run well, stably, or actually even function at all. They just might open or be able to be installed. With that said, that only counts for X86 or 32-bit applications, as 64-bit applications just straight up don't work on this. That's a pretty big problem considering that 64-bit has been pretty much the standard for a pretty long time now, and finding 32-bit versions that would be compatible with this can be a bit of a pain sometimes. I would love to show you how the SQ1 compares to basically any other CPU, but trying to install literally any of my usual benchmark applications, stuff like Cinebench for example, you're met with this message: X64 or 64-bit applications can't be run on this machine, please find something else, check out the Windows Store. So that's a pretty big problem. I also tried to install the Adobe suite, specifically Adobe Media Encoder, as that's what I use to test the rendering capabilities, but Adobe's website straight up won't let you even download the installer for this, as it just says your PC isn't compatible. In fact, the only benchmark I could get installed was Geekbench, which here you go, here are the results, and feel free to check them out and compare them to whatever you fancy, including maybe check out your own machine and see how that compares, because it's a pretty big difference. This is certainly not the fastest machine on the planet as you would expect, but yeah, there you go. Looking at it from a usage standpoint, it's certainly not the snappiest machine around. Even opening stuff like web browsers tends to take half a second to a second longer than you might expect, and even their own whiteboard application, which opens when you click the top of the pen, that was lagging pretty significantly when just zooming in and out. That kind of translates across the whole device, meaning that when you're opening stuff or basically doing anything on it other than like word processing, it just feels a little sluggish. To me, this feels almost like a glorified Chromebook, albeit a very well built one. Seriously, this thing feels great in the hand. The kickstand lets you set it almost flat to almost vertical and any angle in between, and generally feels just very good to use. Also, it has dedicated storage on board. The lowest end model starts 120 gig and goes all the way up to 512, which is definitely nice to have and a benefit over Chromebook style devices, and even has 4G LTE support with a nano SIM that's under the little flap that is next to the SSD as well. So if it's a baby Surface, it should have a pretty kind of baby Surface price, right? Like, how much does it cost? Wait, it starts at £1,000? And the model I have costs basically 1,500? That's a lot. Like, that's way too much for what this is. That's insane. I mean, at least it has a new type cover, which is actually pretty nice. Like, the keyboard is slightly backlit, has a pretty good, decent tactile feel, and while it's a little light for my personal preference, it's certainly easy enough to type on, which is good. The trackpad that's on the bottom, while that tracks pretty well and has all of the multi-touch gestures and stuff you would expect, is a little small considering how much extra space there is down there, so I'd like to see that a bit bigger. And it also has a slot or sort of hidden section that sort of sits up against the screen that charges the new slim pen and keeps it nice and hidden away, which is always good. And also the pen is pretty nice, it feels pretty good in the hand, draws pretty well, and also has pretty good palm rejection when you're actually drawing in their whiteboard app, so that's cool. How much is that then? £260 for a keyboard and a stylus? That's insane. What about if I just buy the stylus then? Like, how much is that? The stylus is £130. What? That's insane. That's just way too much. Well, at least the display is beautiful. It's a kind of interesting aspect ratio of 3:2, which means a resolution of 2880 by 1920, which is fine enough. It's also gets incredibly bright and has really nice colors to the eye. Sadly, I couldn't color calibrate it like I would usually to see how it performs, mostly because it only has 2 USB Type-C ports, no Type-A's or anything, which for a device of this kind of use case, that's probably fine, and also a lack of software compatibility as well. But let's face it, since you can't run any applications that would require a color sensitive display, it doesn't really matter, does it? The included speakers that are on the front actually aren't too bad. They lack a lot of bass, as you might expect, but considering this doesn't have a headphone jack, it's either these or Bluetooth, so I guess you take what you can get. And when it comes to battery life, it's actually pretty impressive. Now, Microsoft claim a battery life of 13 hours here, which I really don't understand how they got to that figure, because that's just not possible. The 38 ampere battery that's inside this is good for 8 to 10 hours of usage, depending on screen brightness and the usual battery life factors, which, don't get me wrong, is still great. It's just not quite the 13 hours Microsoft is kind of claiming there. With that said, charging it sadly doesn't use either of the USB Type-C ports, instead uses a proprietary Surface Connect port, which is actually a magnetic kind of charger that, while I love magnetic chargers, MagSafe was awesome, is far too weak for this device. Basically, any time I moved the device around, the charger would fall out, which gets a bit annoying after a while. So when all said and done, if you want the configuration that I have here, the 250 gig storage, 16 gigs RAM, and the type cover with the pen, you're looking at spending basically £1,700. For that kind of money, you can go buy a full MacBook Pro 13-inch with the i7 for that kind of money, with the same storage. You can go buy an iPad Pro with the type cover and a pencil, or if you want Windows, you can go buy a Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 and get a full copy of Windows that can run any application you want, a lot more CPU power, and I think double the storage as well for potentially even less money. So I just don't understand why you would buy this machine. Now, I haven't mentioned the elephant in the room, the Surface Pro 7, which actually turns out to be even cheaper than this for basically all of the configurations, and is essentially the same form factor and size, and actually very similar weight as well. And that's because I actually have one here, and I will be doing a full review of that next week, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss that. So to kind of wrap this all up, like I said, I don't really understand why you'd want one of these. Like, the typing experience when you're on the go really isn't that great thanks to the kickstand design, meaning that if you're on your lap, then it wants to basically fall off most of the time, and it doesn't really fit on, tray tables, on planes and stuff like that, which can make it a bit annoying. Also, it's only really good for typing and web browsing. That's really all you can do on it. Maybe some like super light gaming in terms of, stuff that you would normally game on your phone with. So I don't really understand the use case, and especially that price just makes it really very hard to recommend for me. With that said, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of the Pro X? Is this something you'd be interested in picking up, or maybe a Pro X version 2 or 3, or anything in between? Let me know in those comments down below. So like I said at the start, if you want to see more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, hit that subscribe button with the bell notification icon. You can also check out the link in the description to the Pro X. It will be Microsoft's own store, so you can see pricing whenever you watch this, I assume anyway. And if you want to support the channel in more ways than just watching these videos and subscribing, then do take a look at the links in the description down below. There's Amazon and Overclock affiliate links that don't cost you anything to use, but massively help me out when you use them, or merch for hoodies or t-shirts like this one. This is the stripes design hidden under the table there. And there's also stuff like Patreon if you want to support me directly and get cool rewards for doing so, or even Streamlabs OBS if you want to start streaming. Otherwise, that is pretty much it. Feel free to check out some more videos over there, and if you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below. But otherwise, that is pretty much it. We'll catch you all in the next video.